day, everyone. Thank you for joining me today as we embark on the next chapter of an exciting journey together. Welcome to Beyond the Caribbean Cruise Destinations, a presentation series inspired by my own travels. As someone who's explored these vibrant and diverse regions firsthand, I want to take you beyond the traditional cruise itineraries. Together, we'll uncover the hidden gems, immerse ourselves in local cultures, and discover unique experiences that go far beyond the surface. Whether you're a seasoned traveler or just starting to dream about your next getaway, I hope to inspire you to see beyond the Caribbean in a whole new light. So when it comes to exploring the world, there are plenty of cruise lines that can take you to its well-known ports, but each offers a unique experience. From luxury sailings to adventure-packed journeys, there's something for every type of traveler. So the cruise lines that you're used to seeing for the Caribbean, they all travel the world as well. So we have major cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, Carnival, MSC, Disney, Norwegian are popular choices for those looking for fun-filled vacations and plenty of onboard entertainment, family-friendly activities, and lively atmospheres. Yes, Disney does sail all around the world, because that's the most common question that I get. For those looking for maybe perhaps a little bit more elevated experience, we have Celebrity, Holland America, Virgin Voyages, which is an adult-only cruise line, so no kids ever, and Princess offer a premium approach with dining, elegant ships, curated shore excursions that focus more on cultural immersion and relaxation. They often visit a mix of mainstream ports and lesser-known gems, providing a balanced experience. But if small ships and off-the-beaten-path adventures are more your style, we have cruise lines like Oceania, Scenic, Ponant, and more that specialize in intimate boutique-style sailings or expedition sailings. These ships can access smaller, less crowded ports, giving travelers a chance to experience the world in a more authentic way. And for the ultimate in luxury, we have Azamara, Silversea, Seabourn, and more that redefine cruising with all-inclusive elegance, personalized service, and exotic itineraries that include hidden harbors and secluded beaches, again, that you won't necessarily be able to reach with a larger cruise line. Smaller ships can go to different places, so even if you've been beyond the Caribbean on some of the larger cruise ship lines, you may want to further explore with some of the smaller cruise ships that can get you into different ports than you've perhaps visited before. Viking Ocean is also listed here. Viking, of course, is more well known for their river cruises, which we aren't going to talk about in this series right now. But they do have an ocean-going regular cruise line series of ships as well, so they do sail the ocean, just like the rest of the cruise lines listed here. So regardless of the cruise line you choose, each one offers a different perspective on the world that you're going to visit. So I do often get asked, can I explore on my own or should I do a shore excursion at whatever port it is they're asking about? The answer truly is it depends. So here's a few key factors to consider when deciding whether you want to venture out independently or book some sort of organized tour. First one, of course, is personal preference and your comfort level. Do you enjoy navigating new places on your own? Can you read a map, or are you good with directions to wander away and then wander back and get yourself back to the ship? Or do you perhaps prefer the ease of a guided experience where you don't have to worry about navigation? Same thing with walking or driving. Some destinations are more pedestrian friendly, while others will require transportation to reach the key attractions. So sometimes the key attractions that you're looking for are perhaps not in walking distance. And perhaps it's easier to take a guided tour than to figure out how to get yourself to and from that particular attraction that you're trying to visit. Do you like history and stories? If you love the in-depth historical insights, guided excursions definitely worth it. You will get a local guide who will be able to give you the history, and you can ask live questions too, and get the answers right there with that local tour guide. If you prefer to explore at your own pace, self-guided tours could be a great option. And, it comes down to how structured or self-guided you want to be, and that may change depending on what port you're visiting. So do you like the set schedule, or do you want the flexibility to wander around and discover things on your own? Sometimes you can still start with a structured tour, and there may be some free time afterwards, and especially if it's a walking tour, you might be able to just tell the guide, thank you, I will get myself back to the ship, always let them know, and you can go further explore yourself. So I'm going to recommend general recommendations for each port. Not every port, because there's a lot, but there there will be the main ports that most cruise lines would stop at. And I'm going to, recommend whether you can explore on your own or if perhaps you really should do a shore excursion. And for each one of those ports that I do talk about, I've listed the top 3 attractions. Not all of those can be explored on your own. So some of those could be the main attraction may not be within walking distance. You may have to travel for an hour or more or less to get to that attraction. So again, you have to figure out what it is you're interested in and do your own research. Only you know what kinds of activities and attractions match your interests and travel styles. So my goal is to give you the insights and inspiration to make the most of your time in each destination. So once you narrow it down and you still have questions, well, then I can help because I have been to almost all of these cities and destinations that we're going to talk about in this series. And one final thing about shore excursions. And even if you're not going to do an actual shore excursion with a guided tour or anything through a tour guide, always be cognizant of getting yourself back to the ship before the time that they tell you you have to return to the ship. Every day there will be a time that will be posted, and you will get documentation every day, whether it's on the app or paper file, that tells you you must be back on ship by. And that may be the local time, it may be ship time, so make sure you always know what that time is, and if it's different than the local time, make sure you do the conversion so you know what time you need to be back to the ship. The ship can leave without you. So always be cognizant of getting back in time. If you do decide to book a shore excursion, there are a couple of ways that will guarantee that you get back to your ship. So if something happens, maybe there's a shutdown on the highway or the railway or whatever transportation that you are using through your tour that you've booked, and they cannot physically get you back to the ship on time. They will be, of course, in contact with the ship, and your tour company, if you book either with the cruise line or with Expedia Shore Excursions group, you have to use the link that I provide to you, or you go through my Expedia page. Because if you book just on expedia.com or .ca, you don't get that return to ship guarantee. It's only with the cruise line itself or the Expedia Shore Excursions group. So if they can't get you back, they are still responsible to get you to the next port of call. Okay, so they are guaranteeing you always get back to your ship. Okay, and the Expedia Shore Excursions group work very closely with the cruise line to make sure that they're partnering with the right times and everything to get you back to the ship on time. So today on Beyond the Caribbean Cruise Destinations, we're going to talk about the Baltic Sea and Norway. And then after, we're going to talk about Alaska. I grouped these together even though they are in different areas of the world. They're quite similar in their offerings and in some instances, Norway and Alaska have some similarities. So we'll start with the Baltic Sea and Norway. So we did this area back in 2018, and we flew into Sweden. We rented a car for a week and went and drove to Norway. Then we came back and we hopped on a cruise that started in Sweden and ended in Denmark, which is kind of backwards from what I've got all these countries listed here, but I listed those in alphabetical order. So we're going to go through all of the Baltic Sea destinations and talk about Norway that we did on our cruise to the Baltic Sea. You can see a cruise ship down in a fjord here behind me, or behind Fred, technically behind his shoulder, when we were there in Norway and exploring Norway. So Copenhagen, the terminals are way too far away to walk to, so we recommend a shore excursion for this port. The Little Mermaid statue is the Hans Christian Andersen Little Mermaid, and that's quite popular attraction. There's a pedestrian shopping street that has lots and lots of stores and shops and restaurants and bars and lots of authentic food, drink, and local wares from Denmark. It was lovely. And the waterfront district was lovely too. We actually did a shore excursion after we got there, because this is where we ended in Copenhagen, but we did a river tour after, and it's quite unique experience to explore somewhere like Copenhagen. We're not talking about Amsterdam here, but Amsterdam's very similar with all of the waterways and stuff as well. So we did Amsterdam in a driving tour on a different trip, but very interesting to see it from the water versus on land too. So it's nice to have those two different perspectives. But with us, this was our last port of call, so we could kind of get ourselves off the ship and then worry about doing things in Copenhagen ourselves. But if it's just one stop on your trip and you just have the one day, I highly recommend the shore excursion because the port is, those terminals are pretty far away. We went to Estonia, which is, of course, in the Baltic Sea, and we were stopped in Tallinn. And you're docked about a kilometer away from Old Town, so we did take the shuttle. It's a little bit hilly on the way to Tallinn, but once we were in Tallinn, it wasn't quite as hilly in the town. But if you do end up walking either direction, back down, I think was not as, we didn't walk either direction to and from the ship. But I think down was probably not up the hill, you know? I think up the hill was as you were going to Tallinn. But there's a lot of cobblestones. It's harder to walk on cobblestones, so just be aware. But we wandered around here in the main central area. We went to the Tupa Castle and explored the town walls. You could go up in sections of the town walls as well and look down over. This is the town hall square here in Old Town. That's pictured. Again, these pictures, if I've been there, these are my personal pictures from our trip. So that's what all of these ones are. And there's a cathedral in this area as well. So Tallinn was quite lovely. All of the different architecture. We stopped in for some food and drink at a little local pub. Always nice to get that, but it's very easy to explore on your own once you get to the old town. Okay. And we also visited Finland. For the most part, we did one port in each country, okay, that we visited, with the exception of Sweden. So in Finland, we were in Helsinki. It's a 15-minute walk into town, or there is a shuttle. We actually did some shopping because there was a shoe malfunction, so we had to go buy another pair of sneakers for somebody. So we ended up taking the local transportation buses to the downtown area where the shopping malls were and went there, got a replacement pair of sneakers, and then we got the bus back, and then we explored on our own here near the Helsinki Cathedral, which is what we see here. And there's a square here, and there's a whole bunch of different things to see and do around this particular area here in Helsinki, in the Old Town area. We didn't get to see the Sea Fortress. That was a shore excursion that you would have had to do. And of course, you can also find a Finnish sauna, which was probably easier to do if you found a shore excursion to do that as well. But these are natural, volcanic based hot spring saunas, right? Well known for in the countries like Finland. So we had a lovely time wandering around Helsinki. There was some little outdoor market areas and stuff. We bought some things there too, so that was nice. I like to buy, as I'm an artist myself, I like to buy local artwork, so picked up a picture from a local artist in Finland as well. So we actually had a stop at Germany, and this stop is technically in Warnemund, and it's the stop to bring people to Berlin. Okay, it's a 2-hour ride to Berlin. We've been to Berlin twice. We didn't spend 2 hours to go back to Berlin, both ways, right? So that's 4 hours round trip for Berlin. So we opted not to do that. So we stayed in the area. So it's a 20-minute train ride from the port to Rostock. So this picture is of Rostock, one of the main squares in Rostock. And we spent some time here and wandered around. Again, had a little snack, some local food and drink. And then we got our train back, and the train is right outside the port, okay, in Warnemund. So it's very simple to hop on the train. It runs back and forth every, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes or whatever. So it's not a big deal to go, and it wasn't very expensive for a 20-minute range ride. But we went back to Warnemund, and there's a lighthouse there, so that you can, and we spent a lot of time wandering around there. There's lots of small shops and things to do in the port as well. And there was a parade. I don't know what else to call it. I know there's a technical word, but basically it was a whole bunch of sailing ships, so old sailing ships, galleons, and these, Santa Maria, like old school, big sailing ships that were coming into port. So I've got these gorgeous pictures from that too. And so it was just a fun experience there. But of course, if you're going into Berlin, we talk lots about Berlin too. There's the Berlin TV Tower and Alexanderplatz, which is the biggest square that is in one of the biggest squares in Berlin. They have Christmas markets there. We were at the Christmas markets in Alexanderplatz. Berlin has one of the most numerous number of different Christmas markets in a city in Germany. We were lucky enough to go there, and we're going back again this year, so very excited. Of course, all kinds of history in Berlin, and they don't shy away from it. There are sections of the Berlin Wall still standing, as it was, the sections of it from back in the day. They've also changed a section of it to an art installation, so artists get to um, paint on the wall, and it stays there for a period of time, and then a new artist gets to paint on the wall. It's just this whole art installation. So they've turned something that was not necessarily a good piece of their history into something positive. The Brandenburg Gate, all kinds of things to see and do in Berlin. So you can always talk. But if you're doing Berlin, definitely a shore excursion. But the other two you can do on your own. So we also visited Latvia, and that town was Riga. So there's two different ports. We were lucky enough to dock at the one that was right in town, so we could just get off and walk around. The other one is a 20-minute shuttle ride, so those shuttles are going back and forth. So as long as you can get yourself to the old town, it's easy enough to explore on your own. Again, the different architecture, you can just kind of see it here that it's just different than what we're used to. And it's so beautiful. The House of the Black Heads is very important historical landmark that they have there. This is from the Old Town Square, and the Riga Central Market was there as well. So we enjoyed our time in Latvia, and again had a little snack and a little drink and a little rest, and picked up some local wares in the market as well. So quite a fun time. Sweden. So Stockholm is really where we started our cruise, and we flew in, of course, a few days or over a week early, and we drove to Norway before we started the trip. So when we get back to Stockholm, I think it was 2 days before cruising, we actually did some things in Stockholm. So Stockholm is usually one of the ports that you're going to start your cruise from, but it could be one that you're just there for the day. So if you are just there for the day, the terminals are very far away, and you will need to do probably an excursion or get yourself from the port into Stockholm so that you can explore. But you probably are better off with the shore excursion. We did the ABBA Museum, which is further away. It's not in the general downtown area. So we did actually have to take a train slash subway ride to get there from the downtown area. So keep that in mind if you do want to go to the ABBA Museum. It may not be something that you do. You've got to figure out the logistics of that if you're doing it on your own. The Gamla Stan is basically their old downtown historic center, which is where we stayed, and we quite easily to walk around down there, no problem. And there's an open air museum, which is mostly unique, um, we normally don't think of open air museums, but they have quite a few of them over there in these countries, and it was different. And don't tell my parents that I put a picture of them in the presentation to you. But as you can see, that's ABBA, not the real ones. That's the work of Madame Tussauds, and these are their actual outfits. ABBA was very good about keeping all of their outfits and lots of memorabilia, so you'll see a lot of different outfits on display in the museum. And they actually do one floor level is now dedicated to the movies as well. So you've got the ABBA, the group, and you've got interactive things. You can sing with ABBA. You can get on stage with hologram ABBA, all kinds of different fun stuff. But they've got the movie part in there, so it's something for everybody at the ABBA Museum. So it was quite fun. So in Sweden, like I said, we actually did two different stops in Sweden, and this one was the Gotland Island, which is off the coast of Sweden in the Baltic Sea, and the town is Visby. The terminal's about a kilometer away, but it's good walking, very well laid out. Anytime you've got to cross the street, they've got elevated crosswalks for you and all kinds of things, very easily to follow. They've got lines painted and signs everywhere. Easy peasy. But there is a shuttle that you can take if you want, if you need to get yourself into Visby. We did walk it, though. Quite easily to explore on your own. It's a very medieval city, so it has a medieval wall. There's lots of church rooms. As you can see, this is one of the church rooms that were there. There's Santa Maria Domkriqa, sorry for the pronunciation, church up on a hill. So it took a little bit of time to walk up there, but gorgeous view once you're at the top. There's a Gotland museum and a botanical garden. And while we happened to be there that day, there was a medieval festival going on near the botanical garden on the field grounds. And we spent quite a bit of time there, and people were dressed in costume, and it was just such an interesting experience. We just fluked into it. But you can certainly explore Visby on your own. In Norway, like I said, we didn't do this on the cruise, but you can do a cruise. There are many cruises that go to Norway, and we'll take you into the fjords. This is just one of, oh my gosh, I would say there might even be hundreds of fjords in Norway. So it's really hard to see, but we're on the top of a mountain, which is a ski resort in this particular case, that overlooks one of their main fjords. This is a little small town. We spent a little bit of time down there because we were waiting for the ferry, which there's a little tiny small speck right here in the water. That's the ferry. So in Norway, to get around, of course, you drive all the way down around to the end of the fjord and come all the way back up the other side. But that takes a long time, which for us was okay. We're tourists. This is what we want to see. But in some cases, we did actually take the ferry. So there's ferries that are just 5-minute runs, 10-minute runs, anywhere in between, that run back and forth continuously. So that's one of the ones we took. So that little ferry, of course, we weren't on it there because we were at the top of the hill. But after we finished at the top of the hill, we went down there and then drove off and did more exploring. So they've got their ferry systems down pat, I tell you. But you do dock, if you are docking in Norway, in Aalesund. You are docking in the center of Aalesund. We stayed here, and this is where we went. So this is the Geiranger Fjord, which is, like I said, one of their most popular fjords that they have. You can certainly explore Aalesund on your own. It's a beautiful little city, beautiful. The Bronsund area is gorgeous. This is not the viewpoint here. The Askla viewpoint. It's not this one. This was, like I said, a ski resort. But if you're on a cruise, sometimes there should be, with most of the Norwegian or Norway cruises, I can't say Norwegian because that's a cruise line, because more than those go to Norway. Sometimes you're going to cruise down the fjord, and the town might be right down at the end of the fjord. Like that picture where you could see the cruise ship over the shoulder of my husband. That was a town at the end of the fjord. Sometimes there's towns like this throughout the fjord, and some, of course, they're at the beginning of the fjord. So it depends on what your schedule is of your particular cruise line, of if you're going to go down this fjord or if you're going to get off and explore different things. So, you could maybe take an excursion to go up to the top of this ski resort and see the same view that you see here. It really depends on the cruise line and what's going on. So you can stay in the town because you're docked right in the center, but if you want to go out and about, you're going to have to do a short excursion because local transportation for ferries is really good. Local transportation in the cities or to get outside of the cities, not as much. Okay, there's no trains, no real, the bus routes are kind of, they're not geared towards tourists, put it that way. We also stayed in Trondheim, which also is a popular cruise port. The dock is a 15-minute walk to the city center, so kind of doable if you want to. This is the old view from the Old Town Bridge. So on both sides, these are called sheds, of course, just like they are here. And they're all brightly colored and this lovely reflection, but they're going down both sides of this from the bridge. We wandered around a lot in Trondheim. It was lovely, easy to explore on your own. We, of course, had a car, so we did a lot of things outside of the cities that we were staying in. So you might need to do shore excursions to do that. So there's all kinds of interesting places that you can visit in Norway on your shore excursions. And again, they may take you to the top of a lookout to see down and see the beautiful scenery over a fjord. And we're going to talk a bit about Alaska now in the Beyond the Caribbean cruise destinations. So we'll get right into here now. We were at most of these places. We were in Juneau, Ketchikan, and Skagway. We started our cruise in Seattle. We visited the Yukon from Skagway. We've been to Vancouver other times, just not this cruise. Prince Rupert and Sitka Sitka and Seward we have not been to, okay, but they are popular ports, sort of. And of course, there's plenty of glaciers and fjords. Again, another one of my photos from the ship. And the tourists were all, I call anybody that wasn't from Canada or Newfoundland a tourist in this case, because they were all looking at these saying, oh my, how large those icebergs were. And we were kind of saying, not really. Technically an iceberg, we would call those bergy bits. They weren't that big, as you can see from the perspective of the mountains, but they loved them. And we don't get the kind of clear blue stuff like this that we saw there. So those were interesting to us as well. And a glacier, we don't have those here in Newfoundland either. So that was interesting. So we saw this one in Juneau. There's only room for 3 ships to dock right in the town, so you may be tendered or you may be at a dock further away. You will not know, generally speaking, until the day you get there sometimes. You may know if you're tendered, but you may not know which dock you're at. So word of warning on that if you're planning your own thing. We happened to be at one of the 3 that docked right in town because we were at the last week of cruising in Alaska. There was, I can't remember truthfully if it was this port or another port, there was somebody anchored outside this with tenders, but there was, because all the docks were full. Can't remember if it was Juneau or not. But Juneau, you can certainly explore on your own. We did a little bit of exploring on our own, but it started to drizzle rain that day, and we did decide after to just get a local cab to drive us around and show us some things. So that was it, and they brought us to, this is the Mendenhall Glacier, so one of the more famous glaciers in Alaska. So you can see it was kind of at a distance. We didn't get that close to it, but it was still kind of cool to see. Very popular place for whale watching, orcas, which we don't get a lot of here in Newfoundland, but humpbacks, of course, we're familiar with. And Juneau is very historic, and there was a lot of old buildings there, and a local little restaurant that we ate at, things like that. So it was lovely. Ketchikan, we stopped right in town, but you could be tendered and dropped off as well. I know this wasn't the place that there was tender boats, because I remember this one. Specifically on how it was oriented with the dock. Easy peasy to do this on your own. We were dropped right in front of the main road, so there's kind of a main Water Street kind of place. This is Creek Street. In those waters, you will see salmon. Hundreds of salmon. Okay? You just look down and they're just everywhere. That was probably a 10-15 minute walk from the main area, so still doable. You can see it's just an interesting little old place with walkways connecting all the little buildings and stuff, so that was quite interesting. The Totem Bight State Historical Park and the Alaska Rainforest Sanctuary are definitely excursions, and they are very, very popular. The Totem Bight State Park usually has a bunch of different lumberjack events that you can watch and or participate in, and then the Rainforest Sanctuary as well, kind of as it's self-explanatory. It's a kind of a walk through a rainforest sanctuary where you'll see lots of different vegetation, and you may see some wildlife as well. But again, shore excursions for those. That's the sanctuary is way further away than the historic park. We were not in Seaward, which is the port to get yourself to Anchorage. You can walk or take the free shuttle to the center of town, but it's 3.5 hours to Anchorage. Usually you are ending your cruise here, unless you're doing a 14-day where it's turning around and going back. So you would do an excursion to Anchorage in that case. But again, usually they're ending the cruise here or starting the cruise, one way or the other. But Seaward you can certainly explore on your own. If you get to Anchorage, you can certainly explore on your own. The Sea Life Center is one of the most popular things there in Seaward, and they have a waterfront park and downtown area that you can easily walk around as well. There are fjords up there. The cruise lines don't tend to go into these, but you can take little tours with smaller excursion companies to take you in there. Sitka, this is the view right off the front of the ship as you're coming into Sitka. So such a gorgeous view that you see as you're coming in. You could be docked or you could be tendered. There is a shuttle to get you to the town because your port is a little further away than for other things. So you can get off and walk around Sitka. You'll have to do shore excursions or shuttles to go out further. So the Tallgrass National Forest is quite popular, and a bunch of different wildlife tours, whether it be inland or on sea, to see different wildlife there. Skagway is a very short walk into town. This is a little fuzzy because we were on the tour bus. We were on our way to go to the White Pass and Yukon Route shore excursion. So the White Pass is the border of the Yukon and Alaska where the railway passes. And you can take a shore excursion where they bring you to the train station on a bus, hence the fuzzy picture from the bus. And when you get on the train, you can do two things. You can either just go to White Pass and you stop, and then they basically go back to Skagway. Or you can continue on and go all the way to the Yukon, which we did, and spent some time in the Yukon, because when else were we going to get to the Yukon? So that was quite interesting. But Skagway, of course, as a lot of Alaska is, gold rush era history and buildings, and you can actually go gold panning in the area and stuff. So you can certainly walk around historic Skagway on your own. Otherwise, if you want to go outside, you're going to have to do a shore excursion. And we were gone the whole day, basically, because we went to the Yukon. So my only pictures of Skagway were from the bus, but looked lovely that you could walk around and do a bunch of things there. And this is the other glacier that we saw at the end of one of the fjords that we traveled down on the ship. And again, once we got down towards the end, this is quite zoomed in, by the way, on this photo that I took, because they're not going to go too close, because of course it gets narrower and shallower, so they have to stay further a little bit back so they don't get grounded on the ship, but they will spin around. So again, you're going down, and if you've got a balcony or a window, you'll see it going down one side and you'll see it coming back on the other side. But for those who don't have balconies and stuff, they do, when they get to the end, they do spin around a couple of times before they head back. So you kind of get that full 360 view without getting off the ship, because you're not getting off the ship for these. You're, again, see nature, wildlife, and glaciers and bergy bits. Very similar to Norway. Very similar. Vancouver, again, we didn't dock in Vancouver on our cruise. We docked in Victoria, which we've been to both Vancouver and Victoria, not on a cruise ship. But you would dock in downtown Vancouver near Canada Place, which is kind of over here behind the tree. This is a picture of Stanley Park and the running boardwalk there along the seawall. So you can easily go to Stanley Park. Stanley Park's huge though, so if you're doing anything on your own, you might need to rent a car if you're going to Stanley Park. You can also go to Gross Mountain Gondola. It goes up a little mountain there, and you can see beautiful views of Vancouver and the area um, from the top of Gross Mountain. Um, Again, you've got to get yourself there somehow. Okay, whether it be rent a car or if you have to do an excursion. Chinatown and Granville Island are quite easily to walk to from where you dock. And Granville Island is a big foodie place and a big artist place. So there's lots to see and do there. And Chinatown is self-explanatory of lots of things to see and do and food there as well. Victoria. So you're going to need to take a taxi or a shuttle to get out of the port area to the downtown. Okay. So this picture again of my dad and my first puppy dog, this was Cuddles. She took a 30-day drive with us from Newfoundland all the way over to Vancouver Island and Victoria. Back, oh my gosh, when was that? 2008, I think it was. And we did 25 states, 5 provinces in 30 days. We did a lot of driving. We kind of skipped the eastern seaboard and kind of started in Colorado. So we got ourselves to Colorado, and that's kind of where the trip started. Okay, we went through a bunch of places. So we did go to Victoria on this trip. We've also gone back to Victoria on another time, and also as part of our cruise to Alaska. So Victoria, once you get yourself out of the taxi or shuttle to the downtown area, you can certainly explore on your own very, very easily. If you're going outside of Victoria, you're going to need a shore excursion. This is Butchart Gardens, as it clearly says. It is gorgeous. We've been there twice, okay? And it's just absolutely one of the best botanical gardens we've ever been to, hence why we went twice. You're going to need a shore excursion because it's about 30 minutes, 40 minutes away from Victoria, but well worth going to. If you're just going to stay in Victoria, the Inner Harbor and the downtown Victoria is beautiful, especially at night, because we were still there after dark. So you get to see the Inner Harbor all lit up and everything. And Fisherman's Wharf, as you know, it kind of sounds, there's a lot of restaurants there that have excellent seafood and different shops and attractions there as well. So lots to see and do in Victoria downtown. And again, you can also do things. There's zip lining up on the western shore of the island. There's different things that you can certainly do on Vancouver Island. And we started and ended our Alaska trip from Seattle. Most times you're either doing Alaska from Seattle or Vancouver. Okay. We did Seattle with this particular one. There's 2 terminals. One is very walkable and the other one is a 10-minute ride by car. So it just depends on what cruise line you're with and what port schedule is of which one you will end up with. So you'll know that closer to the time of when you're cruising. If you're in Seattle, downtown Seattle, of course, easy to explore on your own. If you're wanting to do anything outside of Seattle, you're going to need to do a shore excursion. We've spent a fair amount of time in Washington State, which is where Seattle is. We've spent an awful lot of time on the west coast of the US. We've been to Washington State, Oregon State, and California State more than a dozen times. So we really enjoyed that area. So we just did a few things in Seattle because we're normally not in Seattle when we're doing our road trips. So we went to the Space Needle, which is pictured here, and we actually did we ate at the restaurant there. And funny enough, one of my art students, she's like, I think I hear Brenda. And she comes over and goes, it is you. Like, imagine, other side of the country. in a different country even. Yeah, one of my art students ended up meeting us there. So it was kind of funny. And she knew my dad's sister. So they were having a chat too. So it's we're everywhere, right? Um, the Chalui Garden and Glass, he's a well-known glass artist over there and very beautiful installations, some of which are right here at the base of the Space Needle. And the Pike Place Market is a great market area. Lots to see and do, of course, in Seattle, but of course you can certainly go outside of Seattle to things too. And this is the Red Dog Saloon that was in Juneau, so very, very popular place there as well. And I know we just did this slide on the other presentation, so I just wanted to show you um, the Red Dog Saloon. But if there are any questions that you have about anything that we've seen in this presentation or any of the presentations in this series of Beyond the Caribbean, please ask me any travel related question. That's what I'm here for. So this is my contact information. This is how you can get a hold of me. And I look forward to hearing from you to speak about where you want to travel next. And thank you so much for watching. Bye.